Jill. It's great to be with you. Thank you for making the trip down here. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm excited to be here. So thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, really excited to dive into your work a little bit more, get to know you and your journey a bit more, and share it with the listeners. So how did this all begin? How did your journey unfold into what it is right now?
Yeah, my journey. I guess there's so many places you could start, but
start wherever you want. For starters, how was your schooling experience when you were growing up? That's a good place to start.
Really good place.
What's your opinion on your schooling experience?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot lately because, this whole reflection process that I've been doing as part of looking into education and my own views on it. I think when I first came into the world of teaching, I was coming from a place of seeing my own kind of schooling background as successful, I guess, and thinking I was very well behaved, I was academic, they were my strengths. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of coasted through on that and kind of had, I guess, a fairly positive experience. That's what the idea in my head was. And it kind of made sense that I followed through then into teaching, because when I thought of schooling and learning and education, I thought, yeah, it's positive. It's a great thing. It's awesome. My experience was really great. But kind of jumping forward to now, I would answer that question in a completely different way because I've thought about words like well-behaved and what that actually means, and thinking that was, something for me that originally was a very tick the box, yes, awesome, I'm well-behaved, gold star, that kind of thing. Where then I was like, well, I think there's a lot of pressure actually to turn up and be well-behaved all the time. And I put that pressure on myself because I guess I could do it. It came naturally to me. But as I grew older and you start to look at, well, what does it mean to be well-behaved? And I think you start to lose yourself in that sense of well-behaved, because it kind of tiptoes into being a people pleaser as well, and getting your value and validation, I guess, from the people around you, especially people who might be considered your superiors or your teachers or someone who knows something more than you about a particular subject. And I started very, very recently looking into my whole, I guess, identity with that well-behaved kind of label that I kind of went through. So now I'm starting to think, I wonder if my school experience really was as positive as I kind of thought it was. And I think I just went with it, because I do have this vague memory of being very, very, very young. It was probably around 5, and you're in that, starting the system. I think it was pre-primary back then. And just having this feeling that it was very odd. Like everything that was around me was actually a little bit weird, some of the stuff that was going on. And I think I also made a choice to just get on board with it. And I think had I had a different personality, or lots of children do, they don't get on board with it, or they don't choose to, or they don't know how to. And then that creates these different journeys for all of us then through that system, because that's what I'm looking at so much at the moment, is how systemized, obviously, education is. We all know that, like, to a degree, but then when you really start to look at it, it's an odd system for now. For
how
do relevance.
What are the predominant oddities that you see sticking out?
So many now, so many. But, just the whole idea, I guess, the biggest shift, I guess, in my perspective of schooling and learning, is that learning has to happen between the hours of 9 till 3. You sort of clock in and clock out. It's that very divided, disconnected from the rest of the day, or what you might be doing after 3 o'clock, or the child's doing. It's almost like, well, between 9 to 3, they're working, they're learning, it's productive time. After 3 p.m, maybe that, it's almost as we don't see the value in that time, the rest and the play and all of that stuff. That, to me, is, I guess, that's what I'm passionate about, offering back into education. But it's really about starting to look at how we learn, so natural learning, as opposed to how we go about classroom setup structures. So I think that's what I'm meaning with the oddities.
Yeah.
So this idea that you will learn best sitting down all day, 28 kids in a class, looking to one teacher between 9 till 3, and you work, on a worksheet or whatever it is. That's a very superficial kind of view of school. I know a lot of schools are doing a lot more than that now, but that kind of
generalized
basic,
view.
generalized view of how schools started and why they started and what we needed them for when they did start, and the way that our lives have shifted so much. Even since when I went to school to now, I feel like there's been massive growth in how we live our lives, and fitting those lives into the school system seems to be really hard. And that was my personal experience. And then I've just been meeting more and more people lately who seem to be having that same sort of disconnection with, wow, a school that we go to, or we can't find the school that we want, or this just doesn't fit into our lives right now because people aren't necessarily doing a 9-to-5 job, or people are travelling more and moving more and not staying in the same place. And so it's, I guess that's what is inspiring me at the moment, to just go, well, what are the other options? Do we have other options? What can we create just from being a bit imaginative with looking at it?
Yeah, it's super inspiring because, as you know, that's our situation, traveling a lot, not really fitting into the traditional old model. Yeah. So we're kind of creating our own model, our own curriculum in which we're homeschooling and satisfying that curriculum, but also adding in like what you're doing. And then when we're in Los Angeles, we're bringing Solé into a multilingual nature school. And then there's some other nature school elements in there. And it seems on par with where you're going, that kind of natural learning, which we really resonate with. I mean, like you touched upon, the typical classroom of there being 25 people plus and the one teacher, like how much of that time is actually good quality learning out of that full 8:30 to 3 p.m. day, and then sent home and doing a whole bunch of homework. I mean, when I reflect back on my days of learning, it didn't work for me. Primary school, like I loved sport and I loved the social element. I was very popular and just had fun in that way. But in terms of the learning structure, and I feared every single teacher, literally every single teacher in primary school. I think back to, I feared
every single one.
Every single one.
Yeah,
I feared everyone, and from year 1 to year 7, and like the only like good memories were when we were on like school camp or sports carnival and stuff like that. But the actual learning element, I was scared shitless of it. And I developed real fear over learning and fear of being wrong. So there's this fear, anxiety that had me scared shitless of my teachers and of being wrong. And and then it wasn't until high school where I actually started to get a bit more autonomy and a bit more choice. I just rebelled the whole system and wagged school as much as I could and created my own learning. And it wasn't until about year 10 where I started to find out what I was interested in, and then just got mega into science and into history and got really good at school. But it wasn't until then where I could start to kind of see where the teacher was coming from and feel my own choice, and that I am actually intelligent, just not in the way they were teaching me. And it was really, it was challenging. Most of my school experiences were really negative until I started to have more choice and freedom.
Freedom's massive, massive. And the fear you mentioned from year 1, or heaps. I mean, we know that children can't learn to the best of their ability if you're in a state of fear or anxiety, and or you're not, because that's the way the body works. It's like looking around to go, what do I need to take care of right now? I'm in a state of fear. There's no way they're going to be in the state of mind to sit and be inspired to kind of go, wow, what's going on over there? You know, if it's fear and control and you're in that kind of, oh, I don't want to do anything wrong, or I'm scared of that teacher, it kind of, I guess that's where I start to go, well, what is the purpose of it? So why keep doing this? Why keep having children in a state of fear? And not even just the children, but the teachers. The teachers are really, really stressed. Really, really, really stressed. Yeah.
It's a big job.
Yeah, it's a massive job. There's pressure coming at you from all sorts of angles. Yeah. And you have this kind of feeling of, how am I going to do this sometimes, you know? And the more teachers I speak to, they're looking to leave the system. I mean, I get contacted all the time now by teachers saying, can I come and do some work with you? And, you know, I'm not at that state where I have work to offer another teacher, but that's really interesting to me that teachers are looking for a different way as well, you know, so that's kind of quite significant, I feel, that when we look at a system that maybe isn't working anymore for our culture and waiting for change to happen within it, which is where I was at for a long time with my teaching career, was that I was in the system. I was really, really stressed. I didn't feel like I was doing a particularly good job of teaching the children that were in my class, and I didn't feel I was doing a particularly good job of parenting my own children at home and watching their own experience through the system, that there was so much disconnection. And I think that there's a big thing at the moment. There's a lot of resistance in those school environments because I think people sense that it's not working.
Yeah.
You know, it's I guess it's on par with other things like politics, and we kind of sense there's like this little bit of apathy and kind of feeling maybe a bit jaded and of like, well, what do we do if a system doesn't serve us anymore? Is it on its way out? It's not yet, obviously, but that's for my own kind of, I guess, well-being. I decided to try, and this is where yoga's inspired that path for me with the learning, is because I knew I was just stuck in this place of resistance for a good couple of years and didn't know it at the time. It's only in reflection. Right. And then starting to go, maybe actually responding to this instead of resisting it is going to help me at least. I had to sort of simplify it to that level of previously thinking on such a massive, you know, big picture level of how do we change this whole system so it serves people better, and kids and teachers and parents.
It's a process though, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, you're doing your thing, you're offering something beautiful. By the sounds of it, you're having regular meetings and having conversations about it. It's so new.
Yeah.
So I guess it'll be a gradual unfoldment, probably quicker than we think though.
Yeah. Because
it feels like people are hungry for a more comprehensive, holistic system.
Yeah.
It felt like maybe decades ago we felt like maybe we didn't have that choice.
Yeah.
We didn't have the power to have those conversations or whatever, just to kind of, you could say, a slave to the system.
Yeah.
Yet now it seems part of the shaking up, or you could say the collective awakening, or however we want to look at it. People are feeling more empowered to create their own structures and their own systems, you could say. That is pretty much what's happening. And I guess that's a process. Yeah. Where were you teaching prior? Were you teaching at like a primary school? Or
I've taught so I'm an early childhood teacher, and most of my experience has been in alternative, I guess, systems anyway, although they don't always like to be called alternative systems, but nature-inspired, play-based, radio-inspired. I worked at a beautiful school called Ballpark Community School, which is there in the northern suburbs, and it's a beautiful choice for a school. I think what started to highlight for me my journey while I was because I was at a school that I knew was beautiful, that I loved, and I was like, I'm so on board with this philosophy. I really enjoy it, but I'm still feeling really stressed. That was about then looking at my personal situation and my personal life, and It's also around the same time when I started to commit a lot more to yoga. You know, when things start to like make sense and everything just starts to flow a little bit more. I think I first practiced yoga when I was about 16, but being very sporadic and inconsistent with the practice. You know, I'd turn up every now and then, I'd change styles, kind of flit in and out. But my interest was probably always from a philosophical and more, you know, the meditation aspect of it. That's where I would get really sort of inspired, and that's the places I love to be in. So the physical practice for me is the challenge. That's the one I have to keep showing up to because I need to bring that balance into my own life. But it was around that time that I was teaching and that I thought, no, I'm going to get back into the physical side of yoga as well. But I approached it all from such a, again, I'm going to say odd way, but because I thought this was the right way. So I had 2 small boys. I was working full-time teaching, and I started committing to, you know, 5 a.m. every single weekday before work, yoga practice, go to a studio. And it was awesome at the start. And then I started to get really burnt out. You know, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was just like, oh, man, I'm really just so exhausted, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong because felt like I was exercising and I was meditating and I was starting the day with smoothies, and, you know, I felt like I was really looking after my well-being. But, yeah, I thought, I don't think it's supposed to feel like this. This doesn't feel right. And I guess it was a little bit of slow awakening, I guess you would say, through pregnancy and of my 3rd son, of starting to look at things and going, well, I think I'm approaching this from this same systemized way of a checklist of done my physical practice, done my meditation, drank my smoothie, gone to work, picked up my kid. You know, there was this really kind of rigid approach to it all. And so even though it was full of beautiful, amazing things, which I was still enjoying, it was done in a very productive kind of state of mind. And I was just getting more and more exhausted and more tired. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. I ended up, you know, I think I was about 4 months pregnant. And, you know, once you're pregnant, you're less willing to put up with stuff. You kind of have this super driving force going, actually, I don't want to feel like this anymore. There's a human growing inside me. I need to support this child. And so I made a really sudden decision to just quit teaching. You know, I thought, that's it. Done with teaching, going to focus on my own family. And I took that kind of early maternity leave, I guess. And it's amazing what time and space does for clarifying thoughts and processes and inspiration, and it turns frustrations into kind of possibilities. And it's not just the time and space, I guess it was that pregnancy, that creative time that's just, I found with all of my children, but my 3rd pregnancy in particular, I think because I had it, you know, I've done this before, I kind of get it. Yeah, I would just meditated a lot and did a lot of creative work and tried to, I guess, follow my intuition on things a little bit more. And I think it's heightened when you're pregnant. Well, that's been my experience.
I couldn't agree more. Witnessing Joe and witnessing other mums, it's such a potent time.
Yeah.
And such a wild time. You're growing a human being in your belly.
Yeah.
I don't know how women continue to work like all the way till the end, a lot of women.
I know.
And keep doing radical yoga practices and deep squats.
Yeah.
Because I know Jo, with her first pregnancy with Solé, had that. She had a very vigorous yoga practice and intended to keep that going, and she just couldn't. She was like, no, my body is telling me to pretty much do nothing.
Yeah.
And she's an active, healthy person, yet she was just being told, like, chill out, soften, quieten, start to get really still around that 5 month time. Like, still a long way to go, but she was getting deep in that nest pretty early. I don't know how the mamas keep pushing along, but everyone's different.
Everyone's different. Yeah. And I think it is that 4 or 5 month mark seems to be really significant as well. And I was more aware of it in the 3rd pregnancy. I think the 1st and 2nd pregnancy was definitely there when I look back on it, but I was less able to see it. I wasn't listening to my body as much. I still meditated a lot, but I came at things from the mind a lot, you know, and thinking, no, I could do this and I should do this. I probably would put, any physical kind of stuff a little bit to the background.
Yeah.
And yeah, with that third one, it was just like, oh, there's an unwillingness anymore to do this. I knew it was my last pregnancy, and I knew I wanted to really experience it, and I definitely didn't want to feel stressed all through it. And yeah, I wanted to do nothing. Like, I really felt this urge to do nothing, and I spent a lot of the time just hanging out in the back garden with my dog. And then, just things started to fall into place. And it was this beautiful time, I guess, of not doing things in the structured normal hours. You know, I was awake sometimes at 3 a.m. because you feel so much going on. You can't always sleep, obviously, at that time, and as you get heavier. And instead of resisting that, I thought, I'm going to go with this, and I can get up at 3 a.m. And I was writing and doing all sorts of stuff. It's a
beautiful time to be awake.
It is. Yeah. It's really, you know, it's pretty magical. And that's when all these creative thoughts started to kick in, and I got the idea, I guess, from the little yoga school. And it wasn't called that then. It was just an idea for, I wonder if I could keep teaching, because I really enjoy the practical aspect of teaching outside of, you know, a usual classroom or even a school. And then I thought, well, I love being in yoga studios. I wonder how it would work. I wonder how kids would go. And I know there's loads of yoga for kids classes going, and that's awesome. But yeah, trying to think, well, that minimalist environment and all the beauty and love that's often present in a studio because of the community that use it, I just thought that's got to be really good for kids. Yeah. Surely just being in that space.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, just being exposed at such a young age to meditation, a bit of yoga, and like the way you get everyone just laying down at the end and eyes closed all snugly, and then the little blessings and whatnot. Just that little bit of exposure to prayer and meditation, deep relaxation, while learning and while reading and while sharing. And it's so uninvasive, yet just it seems really balanced, really beautiful. And I really do hope we can find ways to bring that all the way through school, through primary school, through high school, in those areas where we tend to get so fixated on the academic side. And I mean, there are communities that are doing it. It seems to be progressing. So I see it happening. Yeah. But to have that installed at a really young age, it's priceless. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And part of it for me is it's a commitment to my own practice. So I know, for whatever reason, when I'm teaching a group of children, when I'm with a group of children, that I operate at my best point at this point in my life. Anyway, that might change. But yeah, so that's quite it's enjoyable for me to be in that process and to really drop into that state of flow, because I don't feel pressure. I don't feel as much pressure coming at me. And it's been validating, I guess, to watch this happen, because I've been able to see all this learning just naturally come through the kids, and they just seem to do the stuff that they need to do. And I know that sounds really wishy-washy. So that's kind of sometimes why it's hard for people to understand how we could place our trust in this idea of natural learning. Yeah. Because, oh my gosh, but what if then they're not reading, you know, by the time they're 9, or there's a lot of what if fear base of going, well, what if this doesn't work? And then what if they can't read or they can't communicate? And I get those questions, but this sort of project for me has been really, really validating and helpful in me being able to place full, complete trust in that process. And then now I sort of see it everywhere all the time, which has been amazing for witnessing my own children and figuring them out a little bit more. And it's helped me parent as well in a way that is more in alignment with the sort of parent I want to be. I don't show up as that parent, you know, 24/7, but it's my intention to parent in a certain way. And I'm always pressing the reset button. But that awareness for myself about natural learning has really helped me in approaching all sorts of situations with them and knowing them better, and also understanding what they're experiencing in their own learning journey, I guess.
Awesome. What are your views on just healthy boundaries and healthy use of the word no? Like, are you a complete no, or is there a healthy balance of using the word no? Joe and I are kind of just tug of warring with that a little bit, trying to find like, holy shit, like, does no have its place? Because I know in this kind of community, the kind of alternative learning and it commonly no got totally thrown away.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. I mean, I reflect on that a lot myself, but I feel that no is really important.
Yeah,
it seems
that's
like
what we're
really
finding. It feels like, I agree. Like we were just working with it for a bit because we had Solé at Montessori and just a couple of other communities where the common conversation was we don't say no, we say this instead, and I got that as well.
Yeah,
I just commonly viewed it getting taken a bit excessively.
Yeah,
and it feels like they need a little bit of healthy guidance and boundary.
Yeah.
And it seems like there is a good way to say the word no.
I feel like it's super important. I mean, I use the word no, and I think previously in my life I could have said it a lot more, that whole well-behaved people-pleasing aspect of me didn't say no when I really needed to say no. So that's ironic because I was told no a lot as I was growing up, and yet then I didn't know how to say no.
Yeah, interesting.
So I think because we, still have to hold on to our own autonomy as adults as well and say, well, I'm still a human being here and I'm going to say no right now because this is also, it doesn't feel right. So for me, it's more about, I guess I don't love the idea, or I haven't seen blanket rules work, if that makes sense, in a lot of different cases and a lot of different settings I've worked in vary in rules and to fit in with their philosophies. And I think what I've seen work is when people treat each situation for the individual situation it is. Because sometimes you have to say no. Or I don't know, sometimes I'll use an example for blanket rules. Some schools will just say no stick play, ever, kind of thing. And to me, there's a lot of lacking in having that rule because, well, there's creativity and a lot of good stuff can come out for playing with sticks, but they'll never learn how to play with that stick or engage with that stick in a healthy way unless they have access to it. So if we just shut down and take sticks out of the equation, then there's no learning.
Yes.
And it's the same with no. I feel like if no just is taken out of the equation, then there's opportunities for learning that are really kind of lost. Yeah,
there's a lot of no's in our culture.
Yeah.
And what do we do once we get a big no smacked in our face? And same with the award system. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the old school kind of award certificate whole thing, yet it is an inevitable truth in our culture that you get awarded when you do good. And so it seems like there's a balance there, doesn't it? Like, not everyone is going to win.
Yeah, no.
Yet this kind of everyone's a winner approach, I think, is preparing our kids to be really overwhelmed when they face like, holy shit, like,
if I lose?
I'm going to lose, like, because we do eventually. If we're not pulling our weight, we'll get told you're not pulling your weight and you're not going to, whatever, progress in your field or whatever it is. So it feels like, I think, in a lot of the modernized systems and some of the alternative systems, we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, and like, everyone's a winner and knows and taking it a bit extreme with the pendulum shift.
Yeah.
Because there are big lessons to learn it's okay if you lose.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about winning, but there can be healthy competition as well, and a kind of healthy striving, I think.
Yeah, totally. And I always battle with this, I guess, with the idea of technology with my kids, because it's been an area that I've struggled to find the balance, and I've struggled with it because I don't know how to find the balance yet, you know, like I think, it's totally new. So to try, and to be honest, they can navigate all sorts of stuff way better than I can. So it's totally ridiculous.
How old are they?
Oscar is 11 on Wednesday. Hugo is 9 and 19 months old. Yeah. You know, the 19-month-olds probably can use some equipment better than I can. But this stuff is really new. So sometimes I get in there and I'm talking to them about it, and then I thought, I don't know how to guide you on this, because I don't know what it's like to be 11 and all your mates have Instagram, and my gut's telling me I don't think you need it. I can't see how it's good. But I haven't reached a point where I'm able to kind of navigate social media in a healthy way yet. Like, I'm trying, but I can get really sucked in. Yeah. So it's really hard. The only way I can approach it with them at the moment is to try and just be really open and authentic with them and say, okay, well, we're learning on this journey together as well, so let's figure it out together. And I think that for me is that conversation and the why. So if you're not saying no, I think rather than have the blanket rule of just we don't say no, is, well, why am I saying no? If you're worried that you're saying no just because from a conditioned sort of state of not knowing, or that you're inflicting something on your child that's going to, you know, sort of suppress their creativity. And I think that's sometimes where that fear of no is sort of coming from, is to look at it from a deeper point of view and just go, well, why is the no important now? Maybe that should have been a yes. Maybe I didn't need to say no then. Right. But not just going, well, let's throw out the word no. Yeah. Because, even look at words, you know, the Me Too movement and everything. It's like, no is really important. Yeah. Like, for your own autonomy over your body, you've got to be able to say no, and you've got to be able to listen to no. Yeah. So if there's no experience with that, that's what I was thinking with the technology stuff, because the best experience our families had with navigating technology is when we did like a family 1 month ban. Yeah. No, it was a challenge, sorry, not a ban. We were like, can we do it for a month? No screens. Sorry, wasn't no technology, because we tried to do no technology and we realised about halfway through the first day, oh my gosh, I've got to do banking and I've got to message this person and I've got to check my email. Yeah, I was like, I can't actually say no technology. So no screens. No screens.
No social media?
No social media. The boys don't have it, so that was more for Locke and I anyway. And you know why it was so easy? It was beautiful, actually. We started doing a lot more stuff together and just everyone individually felt better. Yeah. But it was easy because the boys weren't asking for technology. So no wasn't even an issue. Yeah. Like, because they wanted to get to the end of the month. I can't remember. It was like we all got something as a family at the end of the month if we made it. And they were really keen to get to that. So the fact they weren't asking for the TV or a movie meant we didn't have to say no. So there was no butting of heads. There was no even issues about boundaries. And it was really, really awesome. But I thought, wow, could we maintain that? And then maybe we actually have to figure out how to use this in a healthy way instead of just shutting it out. Yeah. Because it's a huge part of the world.
Huge part of the world.
You know, and I don't want to shut out the world to my kids either, because they're living in it. And they need to know how to navigate it. Yeah, we're playing with that balance as well right now. Yeah.
Right now we have like movie night, which is Friday night and or Saturday night. Sometimes we'll do 2 movie nights, sometimes 1, depending on where Solé is at. You know, like if we've just gone on a big trip, I mean, she'll watch back-to-back movies on that trip, and that's okay. And then we'll have like a technology fast, a screen time fast for at least a week, sometimes a couple of weeks, if she's done a lot. Yeah, sometimes a month, you know. Yeah. And it seems to be a good balance so far of just having that movie night, because without a doubt, when it was on every night, which it was at one point when we were just juggling a lot, which we are now as well, but we were just navigating the times, and the easiest option is just to put on the TV, put on the screen.
Yeah.
Actually, we've never had a TV. We just put on the iPad.
Yeah.
But that's been a good thing, not having a TV.
Yeah.
And when it is movie night, just on a little iPad, you know, and then they're not just
sensory
blasted.
overload.
Yeah, because even that, even if we really set it up consciously and like have a conversation about like, okay, when it's time to turn it off, it's just time to turn it off. Like 9 times out of 10, she'll still freak out like a crack addict that's coming crashing down. Yeah, it's intense.
Yeah, my middle's like that as well. Oscar seems to be a little bit better with switch it off. But Hugo, it's just, he has huge, like he's coming down from it. Mm-hmm. And then also I look at him sometimes when he's watching and I'm like, oh my gosh, where is he?
Yeah.
Like he's just, you can talk to him sitting right next to him and he won't hear a word you're saying.
Same.
And his eyes get really glazed over as well. It kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, really full on.
Yeah.
But, I mean, did you grow up with TV?
Yeah, my dad used to always want to get rid of it. And he would every now and then say, let's just get rid of the TV. And me and my brother were like, no, that's an awful idea. Don't get rid of the TV. Yeah. And I think we always thought maybe we'd come home one day and it would be gone. Yeah. But he never did it. But my dad's definitely not a TV guy. Like he'll choose to listen to music or do something rather than sit and watch TV. And I definitely had times in my life where I sort of went, I got sucked into TV way too much. Yeah. But, you've got to learn how to function with it as well. And my brother's grown up to be like an IT guy. I don't know his actual title. Mm-hmm. So part of me thinks, well, if we'd shut down all technology, he would have just found another path, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I see a lot of kids, my son's friends who are they love it. They love technology in all sorts of forms and they know how to use it and they do coding and all sorts of stuff that I don't get. And I get really sort of I notice it's like a funny thing in me that just doesn't like it. But I have to look at that more deeply and go, is it because I just don't understand it? Is it just fear? Because these kids are really going to have to know how to use this stuff. Yeah. It's everywhere. It's quite,
And Joe and I often marvel at where it's going. I mean, it's a common conversation of how rapidly it's advancing or evolving or devolving or whatever way we want to look at it. Yeah. But it's undeniable how quick it is evolving or changing. And the whole artificial intelligence thing, like it's so unknown. Yeah. So it's undeniable that our kids are going to be just in this computer world. Unless it all just breaks down and who knows?
Who knows? It could. It could just shut down.
The phenomenon of the internet, I mean, we take it for granted. Yeah. But even that, who knows? It's such a mystery. It could just be unplugged and internet's gone.
It's a mystery.
The world would freak out.
It would be actually really interesting to see what we would do. I remember my uncle told me about the internet. I sound really old saying that, but the first time I was at uni, we didn't have the internet, so we still took library books out, scanning them and all this weird stuff. And this huge gap happened in between when I went back to do my teaching degree, because I studied philosophy and creative writing originally, and I think it was 3 years between the degrees, and the whole thing had changed. And my uncle, I remember, as I was coming to the end of my first degree, I must have been about 19, and he was working in some internet business, and I remember asking him to explain it, and it just sounded really weird. And I was like, what is he talking about? How is that going to happen? And he's like, everything's going to be on the internet. You're going to buy music on the internet and books. And I was like, no way. Yeah. We're never going to, who's going to buy music on a computer? It did seem really abstract. And now it's so normal. So normal.
And I mean, that wasn't long ago at all. And now those kinds of leaps are happening every year of this new technology of no way. Yeah. And even the smartphone that now we take for granted.
Yeah.
Epic. If we had have even imagined what you could do on a smartphone back then, it would have been inconceivable.
Yeah. Even I think when my first son was born, I think, you couldn't do the same, 11 years ago. I think I was on Facebook then, but like I definitely hardly ever used it. I didn't really understand it at all. And I think I'll be on it daily now. So you can't imagine, there's this thing that's going to come on your phone and it's going to let you talk to your friends all day long and connect with people. And a lot of really positive stuff's come out of it as well. Sure. So I think to just go, well, let's get rid of it is a big thing, but let's learn how to navigate it. And the kids really want to use it. And if we're putting that trust in the children as well, it's like that dance of going, well, we kind of know sometimes we have to step in and offer our guidance and show them. But with something like technology, it's hard for us to show them and guide them. So I think we have to learn alongside them in a respectful way.
And even having those conscious conversations and the digital fasts and even talking about like, how do you feel? Do you feel better unplugging, and just loading up that intelligence. So hopefully down the track they can have their own discernment to go, okay, I've been overdoing it today. I need to turn it off. Yeah. I think that seems like a healthy balance. Yeah. Because kind of like a lot of kids I know that didn't grow up with sugar. As soon as they could get sugar, just like put on heaps of weight, just eating, binging off sugar constantly. We kind of crave what we can't got have. Starved. Yeah. So I think there would be a similar thing with social media and anything. Yeah, I think so. And teaching them how to use it, and what you just said about getting them to go, well, how do I feel when I'm using this? And they need to be able to self-regulate within it. And it's kind of hard to do that in technology because you feel I can't always self-regulate when I'm in it. So when I've stepped out and then I'm like, oh, where did I go? It can just suck you right in. Yeah. Even though you're a seasoned yoga practitioner, meditation, you've got that refined focus, yet it does the same with me. It just sucks me right in every now and then. And then you come out the other side like, holy shit. And it's so addictive, even if you're super aware. Yeah, I think I don't get it. I don't get it. It's going into that rabbit hole, I think, when you're in there. And I've got a new thing coming up on my phone. I don't remember installing it, so I don't know where it came from, but it's telling me how much screen time I've had each day. That as well. Yeah, I don't know how. Yeah. I didn't feel like I didn't put that on my phone, if that's just something that they do now. An updated thing. Updated thing. And that's actually been really good. I thought, that's interesting that Apple or whoever did it chose to do that, because do they want people to know how long they're on the screens for? Because that's been the only thing that's kind of made me go, I think they might rethink that one. Yeah. It's just you're then aware of it. It seems like they're saying, okay, you've spent this time today, and it tells you whether it's up or down. And I'm like, that actually is helpful. Yeah. But I need to be able to regulate that myself. I can't let this sort of outer technological thing that I don't understand tell me, you've been on too much today. Yeah, I mean, a lot of those Google and Apple millennials are pretty savvy, though. So they really are. Maybe they installed it. They're like, it's all about balance. Because some of them, the conversations I've had with these really tech whiz millennials, like really switched on. And even some of like the Google offices and so forth, like a lot of them are doing pretty healthy things in the workplace. They are, there's lots of light coming through, and they're standing while working, and doing sport and yoga, and they have the breaks, and I'm like, actually, it's a good point, because imagine if our classrooms were like that. That's right. Imagine all these technological companies, if they know they're doing it for a reason, right? They're not just being nice. Yeah. They know people are better and more efficient and more productive when they have rests and they have more nature around them, and when the lighting's more natural. So maybe we need to transfer that to our kids as well. So their spaces are more in tune with their natural state. I mean, I get really overwhelmed. Some of the kids' venues I've been to, the play places. I don't know if you guys have been to many, but birthday parties. Yeah. We go to one down the road. It's called Tropical Twist. It's great in a lot of ways, but it's great in the winter when it's pissing down with rain. There's not many options. Like, it is an option, But yeah, no light, just like stale
and the noise.
Manic.
You know that they have really, really loud music? Well, the one near ours does.
doesn't.
Oh, maybe I have to come to your one.
Yeah.
The one we go to's got, well, we don't go at, the boys have outgrown it, but it's so loud and it's pretty heavy music as well. And then there's kids sort of yelling over the top of it, and there's a guy who speaks on the speaker every now and then to say so-and-so's party. Okay. You know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like totally like I disconnected from myself. The kids don't seem to be honest. So maybe that's my thing. Maybe I didn't learn how to stay. You know, it's pretty easy to stay in tune with yourself when you're in nature, when you're in the beach, or when you're in the forest, or when and that's a good thing. I think that's because they're the spaces we should be in. But yeah, it's interesting to see how I can't do that sometimes in these other spaces. I get really disconnected.
I understand, and I have to dig deep as well, and I think of it as an experiment for me of like really getting in touch with the witness and really just zooming out of my reactivity and just watching, and I love to experiment with that in really noisy places. You know, whether it's a noisy city or somewhere like that, where like my reactivity and my senses are getting overloaded. Yeah. And then doing my yoga practice, the breath work, and just witnessing and zooming out. Yeah. And it doesn't always work, but it's a good practice. Yeah. And it's revealing, isn't it? You know, when we're all sort of obsessed with trying to find out who we are and where we work and what we do and how we learn and all of those questions we all have, and it's sort of daily life and living is constantly revealing it to us, and it's just having, or say just like it's easy, but it's having that awareness, and that's to me where we've got all this awesome stuff to add to that learning environment and the schools. And when I think back to where I first started to like get this idea of I did my, you know, when I started doing my yoga teacher training, one of the things that constantly was said by my teacher was, why don't they teach this stuff in schools? You know, he kept saying, it would just throw in there, like sort of conversational all the time, and everyone would nod and we'd be like, yeah, why don't they? And we stayed in that space for a while, and then I was like, yeah, actually, why don't they? You know, and I know a lot of people are putting this into schools, but it's like, what if the teachers were like, instead of so much emphasis on the kids, what if we're using our own practice and it's about our own self-discovery and our own self-learning and our journey, and making ourselves in that way so that we can better serve the kids we're working with. Because honestly, the kids I see are really grounded and in pretty good states when the adults around them are. Right. You know, like I've teach this class on a Wednesday at Woodstone Farm, which is a beautiful organic farm in the northern suburbs, and that's been kind of mind-blowing for me. I mean, it's like the yoga studios. It feels very sacred. It's a great space to be in. But watching these children, because the parents stay for that one because of the nature of it being a farm, and to just see, so a lot of the time, me included, the adults, we walk in the gate and you can see like everyone's maybe a little bit flustered about getting there on time and, you know, breakfast and packing up for the day and all of that stuff. And then there's this moment where everyone just connects to the space and connects to each other, and you feel this maybe layer of stress just kind of dissipate. And then that's when the kids start to just, they're doing what they need to do. Yeah. And it's been satisfying for me as a teacher to spend those couple of hours and go, wow, I feel some success. And it's obviously not all about my success, but I compare that to spending 8 hours in a classroom where at the end of the day I was feeling a little bit like I'd failed, or not failed, but just got through. And then to go, okay, there's some really awesome opportunities here if we just treat it like an experiment a little bit as well. I mean, people don't want to hear experiment with their kids. It's all an experiment. But, you know. Yeah, no, I totally understand. And I think people would get that as well. And just, being conscious about it, being honest about it. Yeah. I think it's very noble and it's a beautiful thing, rather than just being mechanical and automated with it and just doing it how everyone's done it and just treating it just as a job and just getting through the day and grinding through it. I mean, that's the old way.
Yeah.
And there's a new way.
Yeah.
And it's blatantly obvious that the state that, like, you're their leader, you're their role model, you're their leader. And if you're in a shitty state, of course it's going to reflect on them. They're going to feel not safe to be wrong, safe to just put their hand up and express. They're not going to feel encouraged just on an energetic level, not to mention an actual, tangible, physical, psychological level. I mean, it's just blatantly obvious, I think, especially when I reflect back on my own experiences and then just watching when I do take Solé into different school situations, like we've been in countless now. There's a couple of different ones in Hawaii that we take her to, and we take her to yours here, and we've taken her to the Montessori thing, and there's a couple in Los Angeles. So there's quite a few, and most of the experiences have been great.
Yeah.
But the occasional experience when I could tell that there's just a stressful environment, like you said, it instantly ripples through into the kids as well. So it's just a huge responsibility that you guys have, that the teacher has, you know.
It is, but I feel like we can also take a lot of pressure off ourselves as well by kind of just going, okay, what are we doing and why are we doing it? And because you can teach from such, like anything, from such an unconscious place. And that's when all of your sort of conditioning about school and what it's supposed to look like kicks in. Yeah. And so for me, whenever when I was stressed as a teacher, it was often because it's very connected to control. I was thinking, oh my gosh, these kids aren't doing what I expected them to do, because they often don't. And if I'm okay with that, something often beautiful would come of it. When I tried to battle against that and kind of go, I've got to get the control back, and I'd sort of be in that state of not realizing for a while. And then I would allow myself to, you just realize, don't you, sometimes you're like, oh, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And you get that little bit of self-reflection, and you kind of change, and then you go, because this was going to happen, or this was going to happen. And I'm really inspired by Kundalini yoga and the teachings in there, because I find them really practical for my life. The householders yoga, it makes a lot of sense for me. But one of the teachings in there about the mother in particular being the first teacher, that was another one of these moments for me that was like, wow, we've given away education.
Right.
Like we have with everything, I guess, that's systemized. But to go, okay, the mother's the first teacher and the foremost teacher, and, that's from, prior to conception, and then the baby, the pregnancy, and there's so much that we can do as parents when we kind of remember that our role is to guide and teach. But a lot of parents as well, I was witnessing, there's so much fear of like, oh, what if they don't learn this, and what if they don't do this, and got to expose them to so many things so that they can find out what their passion is and their purpose. And there's huge pressure to kind of do all of this stuff where, that was empowering for me when I kind of came across that teaching, because it was an opportunity to check myself as well. And come out teaching, but also including that for my children, my own children, from a more empowered place, instead of, oh, this person's teaching my child and I totally don't agree with the philosophy and this, that, and everything. To go, instead of, again, being in resistance to that, to go, okay, this is a situation. How can we navigate this together? There's a lot of parents that can do, regardless of where you do send your child to school. So I'm kind of in this thing as well, where I think it's awesome opportunities right now to create a new way for education. But also let's also remember what we can do when we're still sending our child to the local public school or wherever they happen to go.
I'm glad you brought that up. So speaking to that scenario of parents sending their kids to just normal public school, and say the parents are working 9 to 5 or even more. Do you have any little tips for that scenario, that parent, in how they can bring exactly what you're speaking of, the natural learning, being a good influence, whatever comes through? Do you have any little hot tips for that lifestyle, that scenario, that parent?
I mean, I can from a huge personal place, because my 2 eldest go to our local public primary school, you know, like when they were younger and we were making choices about their schooling, I was still in that really resistant sort of place. And in the end, I made a choice for, you know, I guess thinking more about lifestyle and where we can walk the closest to, because we were so busy at that point in our lives. I couldn't even factor in another drive or anything like that. So we made that choice, and I was really conflicted for a really long time. Since where I've been in the last 5 years with my youngest, I'm leaning more to, you know, homeschooling or unschooling and world schooling. There's a lot of inspiring things out there now. But yeah, so I'm on this journey with my eldest, and I recently gave them a bit of a opportunity, or me and my husband did, when we said, do you want to continue at school or should we give this homeschooling thing a try? And my eldest was like, no way, I want to go to school. And he's 11, you know, so he's at that point now where he's driven by his mates, and their school is really old school, like really structured in about as opposite a way as what my philosophy could possibly be. And I think, how did I do this? How have I picked this school for my kids? But, you know, the thing is to just get on board with it and do the learning together. And that's this personal story I'm trying to get to is last year, talking to Oscar about some of the things that happen in his classroom that seem different to our family values. And it's a simple thing in that they had to ask to use the toilet. Right. So, and often told no.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And I was kind of like, wow, I'm so busy thinking about these big picture stuff of philosophies and getting into nature and taking down the walls of classroom. Let's just start with that really, really simple stuff of like talking about autonomy. Surely choosing when you go to the toilet is really, really important. And he said, yeah, no, we're not allowed to. And I think they've managed to kind of get there. But he said when we were younger, loads of kids would wet their pants because they're too scared to ask to go to the toilet. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even really know that was happening. And he had this opportunity to do a speech, and he's really interested in sort of these rights at the moment. Like he started off being like how I described it, and well-behaved and people-pleasy, and then he's just sort of shifted, you know, and he's starting to question everything, which is actually really exciting. And then also like, oh my God, what have I created? You know, like, oh no. But it's great. It's really, that's what I want, obviously. But so we started researching the rights of the child in education. And most of them are really like, you know, basic human rights, like, you know, that was written like you have a right to feel safe in school, that sort of thing. But then there's this guy in America, and I can't remember his name. It's annoying, but he's put together this much more in-depth and much more relevant to now.
If you think of it, message me, and I'll put it in the notes.
I will. Yeah. It's just not coming to me right now, which it's frustrating. But we read all of this stuff, and one of the first things was be able to choose when you go to the toilet and not have to ask permission. And so Oscar does this for his speech. And we talked about it beforehand of, you know, so you can say all of this stuff and it's awesome, but, you know, it could go down well, and we don't know how the teacher's going to respond, right?
You said that to him.
We talked about that just because I wanted him to also be really aware that you can have your opinion and you can say your opinion, but you don't know how other people are going to take your opinion and respond. And he will learn that through life himself. But I felt, you know, I didn't want to be sort of sending him in, go stick up for yourself and say this, and not being a little bit aware of possibilities. But he got up and he did it, and he said, you know, later in the day, one of my friends asked to go to the toilet, and the teacher said, you know, I would have normally said no, but after hearing the speech, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, that seems like a small win. It's simple. But I was like, wow, you know, we've just been seeing this teacher as, oh, she's so mean. She won't let you go to the toilet when she wants. Like, you know, just not really giving her any benefit of the doubt either, and then going, she just hasn't stopped to think about it. She hasn't stopped to think about the depth of what that means. And I believe that most parents, teachers, are not doing it because they want to hurt kids or, they don't want to take anything away from them, but it's you're operating from that unconscious place again and thinking maybe fear of like, if I let this kid go, they're all going to go.
Yes.
It's going to be chaos, like anarchy. They seem to get to that point. Mm-hmm. So that for me was really important. So I think in terms of if you're making that choice and your child's in a more mainstream environment, it's like a learning curve for you, for the teacher, for the other kids in the class, for the child. I always feel like there's coming back to that natural learning and using life as our inspiration and looking to what we can do, then there's always something to learn from. Yeah. Like it's been kind of like huge revelation for me, because then it, not seeing things as positive or negative, just seeing things as this is what's happened. What do we learn? What do we do with that? Where do we take that? How do we reflect on that?
Totally. And I actually think it's quite refreshing that you're doing what you're doing in terms of the natural learning and bringing yoga into early childhood learning, yet you've got your kids in the mainstream public schools. I actually really find that refreshing. Okay, it doesn't seem like you're taking an extreme stance on either side. Yeah. There seems to be intelligence being brought to both, and just a nice, an intelligent conversation to bring that middle ground, that equanimity that it seems we're craving in the system, or beyond the system, or whatever way we want to look at it.
It's always balance, right? Yeah. Like trying to find that point of balance, and again, it's where yoga's helped, I guess, because it allows me to be reflective on stuff and to notice, well, when do I get really, when he first came home and said they won't let him go to the toilet, I got really angry and went straight to like frustration and blame and, oh my gosh, I'm going to go down to the school and say all of this, and then okay, let's just stop and wait and sit on it, and what is the learning for all of us right now? And that was huge learning for me to witness the teacher just say, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Yeah, you can go to the toilet. It's like, it seems a whole lot more productive than just going down and sort of having an argument or saying this is against my philosophy, because we're not all going to be with the same philosophy ever. Yeah.
We bumped up against a strange thing at Solé's multilingual school in LA. They don't give the kids any water. So one of the days, it would have been the second day taking Solé there, and I took a bottle of water for her to have, and the teacher looked at it like, what do you want me to do with it? And I'm like, well, just for her to sip on throughout the day, And she just put up there and she said, Solé can ask for it when she wants it. And I picked her up at the end of the day. It was an 8-hour day there. It was a long day. Hadn't touched the water. I did ask the teacher about it. And because they're mainly speaking French and Spanish, English is kind of not fluent. So she was kind of perplexed about it as well. Yeah. And didn't know how to answer it, because I was kind of confronting her about it. Like, come on, like, it's been a long day. Like, she hasn't drank any of this water. Like, what's up? And it seemed that they just don't give the kids water.
Wow.
And I kept just asking her about it. And I mean, Solé loves it there, and there's so many great things going on about it. They're literally out in nature all day, and they've got this beautiful big magic tree that they learn under, and they're playing music and doing it. Like, it is, to me, one of the most perfect, like, full days of school. Yeah. Minus the dehydration factor.
Do they give you a reason?
She couldn't
because of the language.
She couldn't. And Joe and I were really frustrated with it. We were really, like, annoyed with it. Because Solé would come back and just have dry lips and dehydrated, and could just tell she was flat. And we're such water fiends. We're just all about hydration. So we couldn't work that one out. But once again, like, nearly everything will have a little quirk in it. Yeah. Like, come on, like, this is like almost perfect. Just give the kids water. And we put it down to like a similar thing. They don't want the kids going to the wetting themselves or going to the toilet. We couldn't work it out, and we kept bringing it up with them.
Yeah.
And don't know, but it was an interesting little speed bump with it.
It is a speed bump, because to me that, and knowing what we know now about how children learn, you have to have your basic needs met first.
Yeah.
So if you're thirsty, or you have to go to the toilet, or you're tired or hungry, you won't be in that state for receptive learning. So sometimes it seems really counterproductive what I see going on. And we've been through that thing with the water as well, where Oscar didn't ever drink enough water.
I'm getting thirsty.
Me too. And the teacher, I bought him this huge bottle, like an extra. I was like, we need to drink more water, because he kept saying it would run out, and he couldn't, he had all these different reasons. So we bought this huge bottle, and then the teacher said, no, you can't bring that bottle in. You'll have to go to the toilet too much.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's it again. And I think that to me is a lot to do with maybe just how society is in general, where we want to cut off those basic things because we've got work to do. We've got stuff to learn. We've got more important things to do than drink water and go to the toilet. That's a simplified, obviously, version of it, but that's a lot of what's going on. To me, those basic needs are really important.
Yeah.
And the children need to learn, I'm thirsty, so I'll have a drink. And I can't think of how anything chaotic could really come from that. I mean, they do. Sometimes they spill water bottles, but it's just clean it up. So
where we operate so much better when we're hydrated.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could bring this into like anxiety and the ADD conversation. I know when I was growing up, I mean, had a lot of sugar, way too much sugar. I mean, I'd wake up and have 12 Wheat Bix just smothered in white sugar, and that was the norm. Just like waking up, pretty much eating candy.
Yeah.
But it was marketed as healthy.
Yeah.
Everyone thought it was healthy.
Yeah.
And I just remember being at school feeling hungry all the time.
Yeah.
And just craving sugar. And then I got to high school, and I thought I was ADD. I thought, like, I wanted to be diagnosed as ADD, and I'd go to the doctor, and like, other kids are getting diagnosed as ADD. Like, I feel like I'm ADD. I can't focus.
Yeah.
And apparently I wasn't. They kept doing the tests on me, and I wasn't. And I was like, fuck, I just can't focus. Like, it was just driving me nuts. I wanted to focus, but just couldn't. Constantly hungry, but I was eating a lot.
Yeah.
Just like crap though, just sugary crap. And then about year 10, again, when I started getting into school, was when I was also getting into nutrition, studying nutrition, like myself, just really getting into it, and started just taking my own nutrition into my own hands and eating good. And what coincided with that was started doing better at school.
Yeah.
And I do think the diet thing seems pretty correlated with, ADD or anxiety or depression, or even just like my experience of just having trouble focusing that I thought was ADD.
Yep.
The sugar thing.
Yeah, the sugar's really massive.
It's big, huh? That's another huge addiction. Like, so the combination of the social media realm plus like sugar, it's enough to send like these kids into these really crazy spirals,
And the adults as well. So we're kind of all in these socially acceptable addictions, kind of walking around all the time.
Right.
And it's, I think that's that disconnection again. Yeah. It's like everything seems to come back to me from that disconnection. And that's, because, as well, we often want to eat something sugary if we're dehydrated, right? So it's like, when we just start to, I think it's just slowing down and looking at what's happening instead of like trying to fix it. So it's like, okay, kids are anxious, everyone's anxious. Let's do a course on how to teach anxious kids. That's how I'm talking from a teacher's point of view. That's what would happen to us in the classroom. Yeah. Okay, 80% of the kids are rocking up anxious. So we better go do some course to find out how to teach anxious kids.
Right.
And there's value in that. But then at the same time, what if we were looking at why they're anxious and why they're showing up anxious, and just bringing things back to real basics? Do they just need to drink some water? Do they have to go to the toilet? That's super simplified. I know there's a lot more going on than that, but our lifestyles, everything, you know, it sort of creates a lot of anxiety. And I know that just from my own experience and what life looked like for me 5 years ago, trying to get the boys here, there and everywhere and me to work and, you know, somehow still have a relationship with my husband and tick all of the boxes. I think I felt anxious all the time, and that was doing yoga and doing meditation and doing all this stuff that's supposed to help, and it really does help. But there's this social, cultural thing underlying it all as well of maybe we're looking at even meditation and yoga in a really kind of odd way. Just like not, you know, not everyone obviously, but there's a lot of it to just, that was what my experience was for a while. Well, I've done yoga today, so check that box.
Right.
I'll be good for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
But then that's that awakening kind of moment, isn't it? Going, wow, it's everywhere. Yoga is my family. It's how I talk to my kids. It's how I am in the classroom. It's how I think about this.
Yeah.
And that was for me massive, because that's when everything started to like connect instead of be disconnected.
Awesome.
And just following that, like little inspirations and ideas and experiments. Experiments are really awesome and fun. And it's like, if we approach it from a what if, I think at the moment it's like, well, what if is a bit of a fear-based question.
Right.
But if we, instead of fear, what if from this excited wonder, you know, that childlike state, you know, the way they approach kind of play, or wow, I found this feather or whatever it is, it's like, it's not often fear-based. It's often like from this awesome, curious, experimental, playful, creative space. And watching a child play has recently given me a lot of inspiration in seeing how connected that is to spirituality, that state of play. You know, when they're in that really awesome zone or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, it's really
fully present.
And then we want to take them to a yoga class to show them, let's be present. But then it's like, they will get there. I sort of believe that they are already in that state a lot of the time. And, you know, we do need to get stuff done and we need to be productive in our day as well. But, yeah, for me, adopting some of those, not just allowing the children to be in those space, but adopting that space myself. Yeah. Well, what can I do if I approach this curiously, playfully or experimentally, or not always knowing where it's going to go? It sort of really gets you to some sort of cool place anyway. Couldn't
agree more. I mean, as you know, I'm all for meditation and a yoga practice. It's what I do most of the day, and I love it. But, yeah, that sense of play, that sense of wonder feels like why we're practicing yoga. To be more present while we're playing with the kids, or while we're with our lover, or while we're just with ourselves bored. Like, can we interrupt that compulsion to be bored and look up and listen to the birds and look at the flowers? And again, as technology keeps going the way it's going, it seems equally important to connect to the simple things and just play and be in awe and be in wonder. Because that trance of the phone, it's so enticing. It doesn't feel anywhere near as good as when we're connecting with another person, or singing a song, or dancing, or just going for a walk in nature, or whatever. It doesn't feel anywhere as good.
No.
Yet it keeps sucking us back in. So having that discernment to keep playing and to look at the kids, and they're so intelligent. They're guiding us so much in reminding us of that simplicity and that intuition and that creativity. It's so beautiful.
It is. I had a friend said to me on Saturday, I thought this was awesome, I hadn't heard it before. She said education, the word comes from the Latin word, which I'm not even going to begin to remember what it was, but whatever the Latin root word of education was, actually means to draw out that which is already within. I was like, wow, that's not how we approach it now. Now it's like, what have we got on the outside that we can put in this child or this person or this whatever? That's how we think learning is. It's something outer that's got to be forced in through the senses or through fear or something. But wow, what if they've already got all of this inside them, this incredible intelligence and wisdom? not what if, I firmly believe that they do. And it's like, well, how can we work with this to really imagine where we could all be? I think sometimes if that state is like nourished and nurtured and trusted, it's like watching a baby learn to walk. We're still kind of okay with that. We still seem to have trust with, I don't think anyone does baby walking lessons yet.
Yeah.
Do they?
No, I don't
Shouldn't
think
say
so.
that because-
No, I think there are classes and sessions for kids that are developing a little later and they need assistance with it. I do think so. Yeah.
And that's cool. But for me, there's been this beautiful thing with becoming a mum to a baby again, of watching Sunny, because I'm kind of really got good with the trusting part of it, which, for Oscar, I was a little bit more, didn't really trust my instincts as much. And then with Sunny, my mum said one day, she's like, wow, how does he know how to do that? Like, it's just, there he is, sort of taking those first little movements. It's not even a step, but it's going to move into walking. When they roll and then they crawl and they do all of this stuff. And it's so intuitive. It's really amazing to watch. And that kind of, I keep coming back to that when I need that kind of little bit of a re-inspiration or reminding of what is possible when they're allowed to learn. Sure, we've got all our awesome experiences and guidance to help them with, but allowing them to have that experience of the world themselves instead of our projection of what we want the experience to be, because we've got some weird thing going on ourselves.
Yeah. And what also seems to correlate with that is our tendency to overbear, like... I know I was allowed to wander and just explore and learn as I go, especially with my dad, not so much with my mum. She loved to, just a warrior, would worry. But I think a lot of parents have become excessive warriors. And some of that would be valid, through just horrific shit, through like kidnappings and molestations. Shit happens, and we need to protect our kids. Yet I think also the pendulum did shift a bit too far, and it led to parents being too overbearing and not allowing the kids to explore. And I heard some interesting just explorations showing evidence that what a negative effect that has actually had of parents being too overbearing, and it creating this timid kind of scared kid that is scared to explore. So even that seems to have a fine balance. Of course, we don't want to just be sitting on our phone while our kids run rampant and we don't have a clue where they are. Yet we don't want to just be controlling their every move as well. That fine balance.
It's such a balance, because the boys have just started riding to and from school by themselves probably a year ago. And it's just been, I think it's their favourite part of the school day, to be honest, because they just feel all this independence. And, from looking at things now, I'm like, well, they're learning as much probably on the ride to and from school. Like, there's a lot of, spatial awareness. There's actually heaps of curriculum boxes to be ticked just from doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
But all this, I still all had, this fear. And because we are on social media, we hear horrible stories, and you're kind of navigating, wow, how do I let this just happen? How do I just let them ride to school so that they're equipped to kind of deal with it? And it's so important. And I know it's important because they're even saying kids maybe now getting to like 17, 18, and there's not that scaffolding of freedom, So it's like they're 18 and they do something for the first time. I don't know what, maybe they're going out and... going out to a bar or whatever, but they haven't ever been to their local shops before to buy the bread or something. That's the first time they're getting freedom. So they don't really know what they're doing. They don't know how to interact with the world in a safe way. So ironically, our desire to keep them really safe is not making them safe later in life, that's my motivation for when I start to go, I want to just... No, I'll drive you to school, because that's there. Like, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't there. My middle son, I felt a little bit with him, or maybe he's too young because he was 8 when he first started doing it. And I did follow him in the car.
Yeah.
And he saw me.
Yeah.
And I thought I was being really sneaky. And he goes, Mum, I feel like you're stalking me. Right. And I was like, yeah, I kind of am.
Yeah.
Sorry. You know, and he's like, why? And I talked to him about it. But yeah, that's my kind of like, I guess, personal checkpoint sometimes, where try to just go, okay, I'm really scared of them doing this, but it's going to be worse if I don't let them do it.
What do you feel is a good age to start letting him do like that, like riding to school by himself?
Well, I've watched my younger one do it pretty well at 8, but he does have his older brother by his side. I've read stuff that, you know, in terms of like their peripheral vision or something doesn't actually kick into, you know, in terms of what they're actually able to witness. And the roads are busier, you know, everything's a little bit crazier. But yeah, I think if you're walking to school with your child in the early days, and then, you know, because again, maybe we don't do that ourselves as much anymore as a community. So it's just suddenly they're let to ride themselves at 10, but they've never walked with their mum.
Yeah.
You know, there's that disconnect again. So it's just kind of allowing things to progress as they naturally do. And I mean, I've been comfortable with them doing that at 8 and 10 together. Yeah. And that seems to be a bit of the given age. You notice one family does it and everyone's like, oh, wow, maybe I should be letting them do that. And it kind of, and they go, you know, they've started riding to each other's houses, and they're just loving that freedom. And to be honest, behaviour and stuff at home has been loads better because I think they feel trusted. So it's amazing what that stuff can actually do for them. And I guess you remember as a kid, like, being given a little bit of like that freedom.
For sure.
Because if you're coming for that fear thing that you mentioned before, I remember, like I said, I was well behaved, but high school, just it all went, you know, that's when the rebellion kicked in, and I was like, well, I'm not going to go. I'm just going to go and do whatever I want. And I hardly ever went to school for the last few years of high school because I felt like I was rebelling. I needed to rebel against something, and I didn't even really know what, because my parents were actually quite relaxed. But there was this fight, and I think that's going to be there in the teen years to some degree with hormones and everything that's going on. And so I kind of want to start now. I don't want to suddenly give them this freedom when they're 16 and 15 and they've already, you know, then they're in this already a little bit, you know, predisposed to wanting to fight or rebel or whatever it is that happens. I think that's where education, like what you said before about how for older kids as well, it's really important that it changes there. Just in terms of seems to be a lot of depression and anxiety for teenagers.
So much.
Scares me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rates of suicide is skyrocketing, the depression, the anxiety, the ADD type disorders. And it's all skyrocketing, and it's all such a mystery, I think. I mean, I don't know any hard stats and facts, but it seems to be a reoccurring conversation. Yeah. And hearing people in the know they keep bringing it back to a social media thing, having a part of it.
Yeah, that's true. I've heard that.
This new realm of people forming their primary identification with their social media image. It's a massive epidemic. And then the lack of accountability, like the abuse that's happening, the abuse that's happening that probably wouldn't happen as much if we were all just face to face. So you can just lay down a huge abusive comment way easier than doing it face to face with that person. And apparently that's happening just in a huge amount, especially with the kids, this bullying online in which there's just not as much repercussion as there would be if we were doing it face to face. And, I think that's a huge one, and all the things we spoke of, the lifestyle things, the disconnect. And it really, depression is feedback that we're imbalanced, we're disconnected. Anxiety is that. It's all just feedback telling us, like,
change it up,
reconnect. And I think we're just we're learning how to listen to that feedback. I hope we're learning anyway.
I think so. Rites of passage, all of that sort of stuff I think, you know, there's a lot of people doing work with that kind of stuff now where, you know, they're recognizing that the way some of those more indigenous cultures, you know, how they did stuff like, you know, for those 13, 14-year-old sort of ages where they were kind of guided a little bit in this, like whether, you know, if it's a boy, you go and do your men's work and the girls like go off with some sort of female group, and it's very sacred, and there's ceremony, and it's to go, you're going through a lot of stuff. You're going to go through a lot physically, emotionally, maybe spiritually. You're questioning everything. They're kind of programmed to do that. But our society, it could be a little bit, okay, well, just ignore that. Just pretend that's not going on. Just get on board and, you know, do well at school and go to uni and get a degree and get a job. Like, I think that whole thing is pretty outdated even now. I think by the time my kids go through, it's going to be so different. But I'm inspired, I guess, by looking at a lot of work I see going on myself where people are starting to create different programs for teenagers as well.
That's great.
Getting them connected with nature, movement, creativity, all of these things that we've kind of let go of a little bit or undervalued. And then if we look at the fact with technology going the way it is, most of the jobs that are going to exist are going to be completely different to what's around now. You know, technology is going to be able to do a lot of the stuff of the jobs we need for society. So I read that something like 68%, so our kids, like sort of Solé and that kind of generation, 68% of their jobs don't exist yet. So it's like, okay, well, what do we really need them to, you know, maybe some of this information and content is irrelevant, especially when you can Google it all now. So maybe cramming their heads with content and information isn't going to be that useful. Maybe if we keep them sort of tapped into that creative state and problem solving and movement and nature connection and all the stuff that technology they don't think is going to be able to do, because that human emotion, creativity, at this stage, I don't think technology is going to be able to get on board with that, not in the near future. So that's the stuff we've got to nurture. So, there's some really exciting things happening though, even just in Perth, I think. People coming together, and I think change that will happen in education will probably come through the parents, to be honest. I used to be waiting for the government to be making the changes, and then I thought, actually, I think it's the teachers and the parents who parenting philosophies evolved a lot quicker than the school system has.
Right.
So you've got these parents who know so much now about child development and child psychology, and I mean, like you guys would know so much about these beautiful things that children, you know about nutrition and how rest is valuable for learning and all of this stuff that's not present in classrooms. So that's where there's this chasm of disconnect again, where parents are going, okay, but I want my kid to be able to go to the toilet, and I want them to be creative, and I want them to play. And the teachers are like, oh, that just doesn't fit into our timetable right now. So I think the change will come from there, which is super inspiring to me.
What do you think of these nature programs, mainly in Scandinavia, where young kids, like 4 or 5, even younger, are allowed to run around with knives and build fires and all that? Like, for the most part here, that's like, hell no, not at that age, but it seems to have massive benefits, huh?
It's got massive benefits. And I know like a couple of teachers myself who run businesses now who are offering those skills. The farm I mentioned before, there's Steve out there who runs Wild Movement. I don't know if it's phenomenal. I've taken both my kids there, and he does all of that stuff, and it's just my kids' eyes light up when they're out there. They're just like, I don't know if it's especially boys. I don't know. Like, girls need that stuff too. But there's space and there's freedom to move, and they can move their body. And he shows them how to build a fire, and he shows them how to use knives, and they thrive. And then it's kind of like, once you see that, they don't look like that when they come home from school at the end of the day, and they're inspired when they're out there. And that's why I was willing to look at homeschooling and unschooling with them, because there was just this thing for me going, oh man, no, they're different kids when they're out there. They don't want to fight with me or each other because they're totally filled up, but they come home from school day and they can be really sort of just ratty and they're pushing each other as soon as they come in the door. Boys close in age, they just shove each other all the time, which, you know, for me sometimes I'm like, what's that all about?
Yeah.
You know, I had one younger brother and we didn't interact that way. But then I'm like, well, these two boys have been sitting there all day long. They rarely move. They were wearing those Garmins to school.
What?
The Garmins, like Fitbits.
Oh, yeah.
The step counters, whatever. And I think a whole day in school, they were, you know, it was like 5,000 steps. And then between 3 o'clock and 3:45 where they were kicking the footy, it had gone up to like 15,000 steps. So 45 minutes compared to those 8 hours.
Yeah.
So to see them then go out to nature school that Steve runs and just watch them kind of, they're so inspired.
That's great.
And they come home and they look up stuff that, you know, he's told them about, like wild sort of cultures and information about plants that live right here in Perth that, you know, are really useful to us that we don't know anything about because we're so disconnected from nature. So nature, like those nature schools are fascinating.
Yeah.
The school I worked at, you know, I was lucky that we could be outside all day if we wanted to, and I was most of the time because it just felt better. The kids were better, I was better. Just taking the roof off, you know.
Yeah, the roof,
nice.
The chairs, like even just sitting on those typical chairs all day.
So crammed in, and then you think, I don't think I could sit like that all day.
No.
I know I can't, you know. So, I think the nature schools are really exciting, and seeing that stuff happening here is pretty awesome. So, the skills that they learn, they know that practical skills are exciting.
And it's just so empowering.
Yeah. I can't light a fire.
Yeah.
I wish I could. I need to go to nature school and learn, clearly, because I saw the boys pretty satisfied. They, you know, they made spoons out of bits of like bark and stuff that they'd found by using coals and everything. And they get burnt and they get little cuts and stuff, but there's too much good stuff in it to kind of like say let's not do that for me. I
agree. I mean, I think many of us have become soft, so to speak, and we're kind of generally creating environments for our kids to kind of become soft and lack that resilience and just to be able to handle the kind of knocks of life. And I think a lot of the things we've spoken about today speak to that as well, of building up this autonomy, this resilience in which, just these steps of preparing our kids for life.
Yeah, definitely.
In which we're not wrapped up in cotton wool and we've just got such a comfortable lifestyle in which we can turn the air conditioner on when we want. We can turn the heater on when we want. And I think our nervous systems just get, really soft with that. But just to get out in nature and to experiment with those things seems just so crucial to keep us alive and to keep us present and not get our nervous system so dull. I think that's part of what you could be observing with your boys as well, like all that just wild energy of being a boy, and you're just pent up in this kind of rigid angle of a chair and the bright lights and the lack of just circulation. And intrinsically we want to be like challenged and like push our nervous systems and run around and even get hurt, like in a way, like bumping up against things and scraping, and it's just kind of part of that resilience that I think if we're just in the classroom and just coming home and doing homework and then just playing computer games until we go to bed, like we just become like dull and sloppy and
desensitized, isn't it? It's totally just like all these rich senses that are just wanting sound and sight and taste and hearing stuff. It's just all kind of like dulled down. And I do see that the boys a little bit, and we try to balance that out by doing other stuff that we know is available, and just highlighting to them other learning that is happening. And I mean, you would know with your work as well, like how, you know, even when you're the teacher, you're the eternal student as well. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like that's so exciting that we've still got all this learning to do.
For sure.
That's what living and life is.
Yeah, there's no end.
Yeah. So to think that they're like, oh, learning's boring and school sucks, all of that stuff is quite, I don't like it, because I'm like, you know what? You've got a whole lifetime of learning and living to do. So, look for the inspiring stuff, because there's a lot. I took them to the healing ceremony that Mandy did out for the, like on January 26th, and there was loads of kids there. And I was like, you know, if I wanted to be there with my teaching hat on, I could get the curriculum out and go bang, 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 bang,
All
bang.
of it.
Seriously,
Really?
you know, it was like there's so much good, rich stuff happening. And this is not a classroom of the traditional sense in any way, but it is a beautiful learning environment because everything is. And every single child that I took, because there was 4 with me, got something different out of it.
And did they enjoy it?
They loved it, but they don't interact with it the whole time but there's space, so it's on the beach, so they could run off down near to the waves and jump in the water, or they can wrestle each other on the sand, and they can climb up the like dunes and get onto the cliffs, and even just their perspective. Sometimes they were getting way up high and watching everything from below. Other times they'd get right into the action and see what's going on, listening to the stories of the people who spoke. That blew away my eldest son, because that's, I guess, a language that speaks to him, where my middle son, who's highly physical, needs to be moving, he was drawn to the dancing that he saw and the physical movement, and then he's emulating himself. Like, you know, they do the stories and they make their bodies move like the kangaroo, and then I saw, oh, there's Hugo. He's totally been a kangaroo down by the water, and he's kind of... that learning is coming through him in that physical way, where Oscar's listening to the words, and then in the car all the way home he's full of questions that I can't answer. So it's like, I need to find this stuff out as well.
How beautiful.
Yeah.
And a lot of light shining upon like Indigenous culture. And
again, in a beautiful way, because I don't remember having that as a kid. Like, I don't remember that. I don't really remember what they taught us kind of being enough to be memorable.
Did you get taught anything? I mean, I can't remember any education on Australian Aboriginals. I
reckon they told us about the dreaming stories, that sort of stuff occasionally. And I have this is super like kind of being cynical, but I think it's to tick a box. Okay. Because we do have to address it in the curriculum. But we don't know how to do it in meaningful ways a lot of the time. Right. And there's this sort of desire sometimes, oh my God, I've got this big gap here. Yeah. Read a story. You know, so it's delivered, but not really in a meaningful way. And maybe, you know, back then as well, there just would have been even less maybe understanding, or I don't know, or like less thinking about, well, how can we do it? But I talked to the boys about what they've learned in school, and they haven't really mentioned anything. I can't get anything out of them for me to understand how it's been covered. Right. But I think in those 2 or 3 hours that they were down the beach, they just learned so much.
That's cool.
Yeah, and inspired to learn more. You know, they're like, it was really, I was really grateful for that event. And so doing those things, I guess, are my way to like keep them exposed to other stuff. And you know, yoga is a massive part of my life, but they've got some sort of resistance. You know, they're like, oh, that's something Mum does. Yeah. Hugo will get into it a little bit. Sonny will get into it because he's so young. He just into whatever we're all into. But yeah, to see, okay, they get into this stuff in their own way. Like Oscar loves footy, you know, Aussie rules, and that for me is a whole new thing. But I've started reading some of his football books, and I'm like, oh, this mindfulness and meditation, it's everywhere. Like, this is massive in the sporting world as well. So they get it in their own language. So I think that's why, as parents, we don't need to feel like we need to fill every box for them, because they'll find it somewhere. Yeah. Like, I really believe that. So, yeah. Beautiful.
Well, Jill, I know you teach the class here at Spanda on a Tuesday morning. What other things have you got going on?
Just those 2 programs. So Spanda, we do the Conscious Kids, and then on Wednesday we do a very similar program out at Woodstone Farm, which is an amazing space out in Nangara. Great. I just because I always think it's Wangara. It's Nangara.
Wangara.
And it's a beautiful space.
Wonderful.
And sort of as a sideline to that, we've created more, it's the conscious education movement, which I don't know if you know about that, but that's just a group of parents and families coming together with similar philosophies and like-minded souls, I guess, going, what can we do to kind of make this feel like we're a bit more empowered?
So where's that group? It's
a Facebook group, but we do meetings and kind of get together conversation out on Woodstone Farm.
Cool.
We've done a couple. We had one on Saturday, and that's just kind of come from a want of, well, what can we do? Like, I'm kind of sick of being in the whole, like, feeling we don't have any power in this.
So can people hop onto that group if they want?
Yeah.
So what's it called?
It's called the Conscious Education Movement Perth. So it's specific to Perth, because we have talked to, I've talked to people in Melbourne and actually all around the world who are interested in getting on board to some degree. So it's really just a place to bring people together.
Wonderful.
Support each other, share ideas, and let it all grow.
I mean, we've been bagging social media a lot, but what a we wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't for it.
No way.
So it's got total blessings. And the connecting.
Yeah, the connecting is amazing. So it's like, well...
It's like disconnecting us, yet connecting us in ways like that. It's such a paradox.
Or even doing this podcast, like I found your podcast through social media and that's inspired me a lot.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Yeah, we got to see the good side too.
Totally. So I'll leave links below to these awesome programs, and I really love your work. What an inspiration. Thank you for bringing it to the front line.
Thank you.
Really
too.
appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you for being here.
Awesome.
Great to chat.
Thanks
everyone. Thanks for listening.